Hey folks, how you doing? It's been a wee while. I'm full of the cold. I was hoping to get out with cameras and I had a journey planned actually, but just wasn't feeling good enough for it. It would have been foolhardy to go off into the wilds carrying a heavy cold, so I decided to stay at home. I wasn't idle though. I spent most of the time here working away in my gear room to do a bit of reorganisation, which is probably why I've still got the cold. I'd have been better off holding up in the house where it's warm. Anyhow, I was working here and I'm quite proud of my structure here, so let me show you what I've been doing. You'll probably remember from a video I made of the gear room when I originally set it up a couple of years ago, that I had racking on that side and racking on this side. Excuse me folks. And that system worked really well, except when it came to the bikes. So what I made was little bike stands so that the bikes could, in theory, stand down the middle of the room, but more often than not they ended up leaning against one or other of the sides of the gear room, so leaning on the racking on this side or that side. And invariably when I needed something from one of the storage boxes on the shelves, I had to move the bike, so I was forever playing ping pong with these bikes, moving them from one side to the other. So I decided that I needed to do something about that, and my preferred solution was for vertical or semi-vertical storage for the bikes. So I did loads of online research, and I found any number of companies that are making semi-vertical storage racks. But the problem that I had was that these racks are all designed for your kind of standard bike, and I've got bikes with 4-inch tyres, 2.5-inch tyres, 1 1/4, that's a 2.8-inch tyre, and so you get the picture. So whatever I bought off the shelf was going to have to be heavily modified, and some of these storage racks were coming in at about £800 or £900. It was a lot of money to then start cutting it up. So I came up with the plan of just using simple hooks, and I thought, well, the easiest solution is probably just to drive these hooks. They just screw into timber, just screw them into the stud on the ceiling. But I don't know, I'm in a timber framed home, and I don't know how strong the studs are, and I don't actually know which way they go. I don't know if they go up and down the way or across the way. So I thought, why don't I just make my own stud? So basically what I did with this wooden structure, I have made, how could I describe it? It's almost like a clothes rail. And then I thought I'll just screw the hooks into the top of the rail, and then I can hang the bikes on them. But of course, to do that, first I had to dismantle all the shelves on this side of the gear room here, and then transfer it across to this side here. And the reason I was able to transfer it across was because I basically chopped them all up. So I took the shelves from this side, reduced them to parts that were smaller than the components that I bought, and I was able to bolt them all together. So I bought a big bag of nuts and bolts, and I was able to bolt them all together and change the height of the racking of this side from here right up to the ceiling. So I've got these super high shelves now. The stuff that I don't use very often is stored away at the top. The heavy stuff for safety and security is stored low down, and then I've got my paddling stuff here, and my cycling stuff, and my camping stuff. It's all organised and labelled. But that still gave me this problem with the bikes, and so once I got this timber structure sorted out, I thought, wouldn't it be good, instead of screwing the hooks into the timber frame, if I could come up with a system where I could actually move the bikes about. And the solution that I found was to use the track of a barn door and mount that to the timber frame, and then that allows me to move the bikes around. Let me show you. So if I take this bike here and I can move it over there a little bit, create a wee bit of space, take this one here, I can move it down there. I take my old vintage bike and move that down there, and then if I take my fancy new Surly and move that up there. So I've got loads of space. So if I want to take the vintage bike down, I can step in here quite easily, lift that bike down, drop it down, and then when I'm done, I can put the bikes back to whichever space I want them. Of course, I could also put in another couple of bikes in here, and I might be encouraged to do that. So currently I'm storing 6 bikes in here, but I think there's room for 8. So that was my ingenious solution, and I was really proud of it, if I'm being honest. Mo's giggling in the background there, because I thought that I had invented something. I thought I'd discovered a new use for barn door track. But when I decided today that I was going to order up another couple of sets of wheels to enable me to store a few more bikes, I was chatting to the chap on the telephone just about 20 minutes ago, in fact, and I explained my grand design, my Dragon's Den design. And then he says, "Oh," he said, "we already make something like that." So they have thought about this, and I suppose that's not surprising that people that make track with runners on it have thought about different ways in which you can use it. But it was completely news to me, and I felt a wee bit deflated, to be absolutely honest, that they had the idea. It seems considerably a considerable amount of time before I came up with the idea. But at the end of the day, I did come up with this idea on my own. So.
But their one doesn't take the fat bikes, and is not as strong.
No, Mo's absolutely right there. The hooks that they sell that go into their rail, they're very different to this. So I've modified these hooks from hooks that should screw into timber, and I found that an M12 bolt fits on them, and then to make sure that that M12 bolt is locked absolutely solid, I've filled all the spaces between the thread with epoxy resin with Araldite steel, so basically liquid steel, which I think is rated to about 100 kilograms. So delivery van going in behind Mo there. So yeah, so I've created something that is super strong, and when I spoke to the chap, after I put the phone down, I had a look at his website and then realised that they are actually selling something like this, but they're using much thinner track. I think they're using 30mm track. I've used 40mm track, which is rated to 300 kilograms. The heaviest bike here is probably my fat bike, which is 16 kilograms. So I'm a very considerable way short of the weight limit for this.
Vastly over-engineered.
Vastly over-engineered. C16 construction timber with lag bolts and coach bolts and various other bolts that I had kicking around in my shed. So, the other thing that I did, when I built these shelves high, I realised that there was a potential tip risk. So, and if these came over, for sure they would flatten me. I wouldn't be in good shape after it. So what I've done is I've bolted them all together. So these are also over-engineered. They're really, really strong now. It is one complete unit that is secured at the back, but it's also got these pieces of lighter weight construction timber that I bolted to the front, and then these cross pieces that go across that provide a storage facility for my lightweight gear, essentially my fishing rods and my canoe and kayak paddles. And that gives a degree of cross bracing. It also holds the bike storage frame or rack, I'm not quite sure what to call it,
a monstrosity.
Mo thinks it's a monstrosity. My ingenious invention, folks. It provides a bit of cross bracing for that. The only thing you'll notice is that my workbench up here, I have a wee seat on my tractor seat here. I've brought these legs quite far out, and I don't actually think I need to come this far out, so I might actually shorten that one back a little bit, because it makes it a little bit difficult to use this side of the bench. However, I can move this bench. I've got it all measured, so still to get access to the storage boxes and stuff down there on my right hand side and behind me, if I move this bench 35 centimetres, I can still get in and out with these boxes, and that will bring the edge of the bench to about there, something like that. So in fact, the bench won't be tucked in behind the bike rack. So I need to ask 2 or 3 of my strong neighbours to come and give me a lift with this bench, because I don't want to dismantle it, because it's my original monstrosity that I also built during
Well,
one of...
now it looks quite cute compared to your new monstrosity.
Looks lightweight now, does it more? So I built this during one of the lockdowns. So Sandy, if you're watching, forgive my joinery skills. They're quite rudimentary. So my bench will move along a little bit, and I'll be able to use that properly, and then I might be able to build something in there. And then down at the bottom end of the gear room, where I've got my big storage boxes where I keep sleeping bags, rucksacks and tents, I'm thinking about some sort of shelving system in there. But first I might change the garage door into a side hinged door, 1/3, 2/3 split door. But that's for another day. I have to save up my pennies before I do that, because just now I'm spending a lot of my money on my bike collection. I'm blethering now, and Mo's got to get back to work. She's giving me a fairly old-fashioned look. It's time to
Wrap it up.
wrap it up. Time for me to get in out of the cold. Actually, I'm going for a walk. I'm feeling a lot better. I don't sound very good, but I'm feeling fine. And hopefully Mo and I are going to get out and do a little bit of camping soon. We were just chatting about that earlier on. But I'm going to wind the video up before I get into trouble, and look forward to getting back to you on the next one. So I really hope that you enjoy my
Monstrosity.
my master craftsmanship here. So take care, folks. Bye for now.